At least 9 major US cities will count 2021 as the deadliest year on record, not because of the COVID pandemic, but because of crime. Gun violence has driven a rise in violent crime right across the country. At the same time, police have been under unprecedented pressure to reform following the murder of George Floyd. Annalise Nielsen has this report. She joined the police in Kansas City, Missouri, to see what it's like on the front line.
Most major cities saw a huge increase in violent crime, including homicides.
Life has never been more dangerous in parts of the United States. At the same time, policing has never been under more scrutiny.
I never thought I would see this.
Communities caught in the crossfire want to know who is going to protect them.
She said, "Legend, he got shot in the head."
Kansas City, Missouri is a classic Midwestern city of around 500,000 people, known for its barbecue and supported by the agriculture that surrounds it. More people died violently on the streets last year than ever before, with 269 homicides reported. By the time we met Sergeant Bobby King in December, Kansas City's on track to have its second deadliest year on record. Sergeant King has worked with the Kansas City Police Department for over 2 decades.
And it's busy. I mean, the nights go by fast because you're usually called to call.
Contacting Delane, responding code 1.
One of her first calls of the day is a common one. A man with mental illness threatening to harm himself and potentially others.
49th and Elmwood just came out. That's going to be him again.
We find him outside the local supermarket blocking traffic. His family has tracked him down too.
A lot of people would say we need social workers to be out responding to calls like this.
We have social workers here in Kansas City. When it comes to violent situations or situations where things have escalated, it's probably not the time for a social worker to get involved until actually the situation is contained.
After sundown, the job changes drastically. Officers are arriving at the scene of a shooting.
A lot of our drive-by shootings, that's how they take place, is cars just meeting up at certain locations and just start shooting at each other.
Neighbours heard gunshots and the street is littered with bullet casings. But even police officers swarming hasn't deterred the shooters from returning. This is the 3rd time we've been here this evening. Someone keeps driving up and firing off rounds of bullets. It's terrifying for neighbours. For police, it's indicative of the rise of gun crime. They're facing more crimes like this, but critically, they're also facing increased pressure knowing that when they interact with members of the public, there's any chance they're carrying a concealed gun.
So in the 80s, I think there was a lot more drug use and there was a lot more illegal drugs going on. And now I feel like it's gone more towards violent crimes and gun violence instead of, you have the drugs there, but now you have the gun violence that's there too.
Not only is the job more dangerous, it's under more scrutiny than ever before. Sergeant King herself was attacked during anti-police protests last year.
I was struck in the head. There's a lot of officers that were injured that night. Another guy that I work with, he actually got a lacerated liver out of the protests, and he was injured for like 6 months. Yeah, he was out for quite a while. So it was a trying time for sure.
Many officers haven't stuck it out. In February of 2020, there were 26 vacancies for police officers in the city. By October of this year, it was 192. This is not just a Kansas City problem, and it's not just a big city problem. Warrensburg, Missouri is just an hour outside of Kansas City. Police here also say the job has changed dramatically.
Our chief kind of jokes from time to time. He says we're the largest unlicensed mental health organization in the county.
Lieutenant Jason Gilbert has been an officer for almost 30 years, most of that time in Warrensburg. In this small college town, most of the calls are the kind that big cities are too stretched to focus on, like noise complaints and property damage.
What is expected of us has changed considerably. When I first started, I don't know what these folks did, but we didn't go to a lot of mental health calls.
120 dispatch.
We just didn't. And today that's
I didn't need a call opening up as car traffic.
a very large part of what we do.
What does make Kansas City stand out from the rest of the country is the fact it did drive down its homicide rate by 25% in the last year. And a lot of that came down to one boy, legend Taliaferro.
You want a dinosaur birthday?
This dinosaur.
The little boy was asleep when gunshots rang out, and he was shot in the face in his own bed.
They have a glass, like a sliding door, and it's like a wooden patio, so it went through the wooden patio into the glass, and they said he was in a fort. He built a fort out of pillows, and that's where he would sleep at, right in front of that glass window, right in front of the sliding door.
Legend's mum Sharon let her 4-year-old stay one extra night with his dad so he could spend time with his new baby stepbrother. She had no idea he'd become the 96th person to be murdered in Kansas City last year.
The next time I got to see him was at his funeral.
Legend Taliaferro's death prompted the Trump administration to launch Operation Legend. Sharon travelled to the White House and found herself pulled into the politically charged national debate over policing.
The negative part of it, they were saying I was being used and my son's name is being used, and so it was a lot of negative pushback for it too. But to me, when it comes to my child, I was going to do anything to keep my son's name alive and also to get justice for my son.
We had almost 200 extra federal personnel come here and assist us. But some of what we did during that time has lasted here. Like, for instance, we had ATF agents that embedded with some of our investigative units and FBI embedded with some of our investigative. Some of those relationships have stayed today, and they're still embedded.
The Justice Department says they made 500 arrests, including 37 murder suspects, and seized 176 firearms through Operation Legend. For Kansas City Police, they say there's a simple conclusion to draw, that they need to be refunded, not defunded.
I think it's misguided. I think people want changes in policing, which I think even police will say, hey, we can make some changes. But to start from something or to get rid of it because of one bad incident or one event that happened in the United States, I think that's misguided.
I mean, no, somebody getting arrested is not going to bring your child back, but it do bring some type of peace. It's a little closure to know that this person that harmed your child is not walking around with you.
Annalise Nielsen, Sky News, Kansas City, Missouri.